In the National Assembly will today sign the Electoral Code of Conduct at Gallagher Estate in Midrand. Representatives of each political party will commit to uphold and promote the code and spirit of tolerance and respect. This is ahead of the year's local government elections, which will be held on the 3rd of August. For more on this story, we now cross live to our contributing editor, Vuyo Mvoko, who is at Gallagher Estate in Midrand, where the signing will take place. A very good morning to you, Vuyo. Can you give us an update from where you are, and have political parties arrived?
Well, thank you very much. Well, representatives of the various South African political parties have indeed arrived, and some of them are still on their way here, but many of them are already here waiting for that moment when they will, of course, as you said, be signing that pledge, committing themselves to an atmosphere that's conducive to a free and fair poll, not only on the day but in the run-up to that election. But to help us understand more the significance of this particular day and what it's going to mean for everyone, I'm joined by Kate Bapela, who is the national spokesperson for the Independent Electoral Commission. Welcome, ma'am, and thanks very much for joining us.
Good morning, Vuyo, and to SABC viewers.
Well, in a nutshell, the significance of this day?
The Electoral Code of Conduct is a key step towards the 2016 municipal elections. This day in particular, all 13 political parties represented in Parliament will be signing the Electoral Code of Conduct. What it means is that as we're going to campaigning, as we're going to various process of ensuring that the electorate understands and they know how they're going to deal with these matters, then they'll begin to ensure that, especially when you look at the Code of Conduct, it deals with issues of inciting violence. It deals with issues of ensuring that the media, people like you, Vuyo, are reporting correctly and factually on electoral issues, because remember, with any election, every vote counts. So therefore, every step that we ensure towards creating a conducive environment is not only the work of the IEC, but it's a collective work of South Africans. When you look at the Code of Conduct, it deals with political parties, it deals with the media, it deals with the electorate. That means that every voter that supports its own political party, they must understand that as much as it's your right to campaign, other parties also have got the right to campaign.
Well, the pledge will be signed on some piece of paper. Someone will have to enforce it. Who is it?
When we look at the electoral laws, the people that the jurisdiction that will enforce the Code of Conduct will be the Electoral Court. As the IEC, our work this morning and days leading to the elections is to ensure that we promote the Electoral Code of Conduct. Once we've promoted the Electoral Code of Conduct, if there are any breaches to the code, the Electoral Court is the enforcing body.
Does it have the capacity? Will it be able to cope? If past experience is anything to go by, there have been complaints that it can be tardy at times or not process things as speedily as perhaps things should be processed.
I mean, we have worked very well with the Electoral Court in the past elections. So surely these elections, and you remember earlier around March this year, they were addressing political parties, they were addressing the media on issues of enforcement, and they're not the only body that looks at enforcement. We've got also your security cluster that deals with other breaches, for instance, where posters of other political parties have been defaced. You've got all sorts of institutions that looks at various aspects of the Electoral Code of Conduct. It's not only the Electoral Court. We also have got the security cluster that has got its own responsibility. So my take is that having gone through a few elections, you as a country were comfortable about authorities that have been able to deal with the enforcement of the Electoral Code of Conduct. And I'm sure in these coming elections there won't be any different approach in dealing with matters of electoral Code of Conduct. And we know for sure that all of these stakeholders involved in enforcement are aware of the Code of Conduct, and they've done very well in terms of adjudicating on matters. So we know in these coming elections they will do also critical work in ensuring that enforcement happens, so that as a country, as we go through any election, we appreciate the enforcement of a Code of Conduct.
Analysts, pundits say this is probably going to be the most contested election in the history of post-apartheid South Africa. Any things that have happened so far that have perhaps made you feel a bit uneasy?
Our attitude at the IEC is that every election is unique in its own form. So therefore, as we prepare, every election brings in additional political parties, bring in additional independent candidates, bring in various processes. So therefore, our approach has always been that every election will be different. And because also the other important thing is that our electoral democracy is maturing. So with that maturity comes a whole lot of other things into the space. So anything that we're dealing with is something that we've dealt with in the past, but obviously bringing in other additional elements.
When the EFF launched its election manifesto a couple of weeks ago, it criticized very seriously the IEC, saying in the last election they were robbed of votes. Anything you want to say about such utterances?
Vuyo, the EFF sits on the body that you call Political Party License Committee, which is chaired by the Chief Electoral Officer, Ndate Mosoto Miepya. So because it's a formal structure that we have created for political parties where there are any differences with the IEC, they deal with them in that fora, but also there's other legal processes of lodging a complaint with the IEC. So therefore, anything that is being uttered in any other space except legal processes that are in place, we're not even looking at as an organization.
Kate Bapela, thank you very much for talking to us. Kate Bapela, of course, the national spokesperson of the Independent Electoral Commission. And with that, it's back to you in the studio in Auckland Park.
Well, thank you very much, Vuyo, for that update. Of course, a very important day there in South Africa. That was Vuyo Mvoko, our contributing editor, joining us live from Gallagher Estate in Midrand.